Tomorrow morning is gonna start really, really early, and I am heading off on a fallow buck hunting mission. And tomorrow will be what I believe to be the first honest crack at getting a mature buck on public land from a tree with my bow for 2022. And I say that because I now know where the bucks are. I have a very good hunting friend, Howard. Howard has a lifetime of buck hunting experience in the very same block where I hunt, and I've been lucky enough to tag along with Brother Howard on a few hunting missions, and I have learnt a great deal from him. Myself and Howard were talking buck hunting earlier this year towards the end of January. And Howard says to me, "Nathan, I think we need to do some exploring. There are no bucks where we're hunting, and I'm seeing no buck sign." Now, I agree with the no buck sign comment because I wasn't seeing any buck sign, but I didn't think they weren't there. I just thought I wasn't seeing their sign because I walked right past it, or because I wasn't in the exact right place where they'd been. But when Howard made that comment, it just rang true. It's right. There are no bucks where we're hunting. So Howard and I went exploring in some new areas, and not only did we find buck sign, and big mature buck sign at that, to make this story even better, a big fat buck made the mistake of getting too close to Howard's single shot 44. We got Howard's buck all butchered up, and myself and Howard were walking out that day with half a buck each in our packs, and we run into a doe that was on the main walking track. At that time of year, I don't normally shoot does as they have dependent fawns, but Howard was right behind me saying, "She's old, she's far too fat to have a fawn, she must be barren, shoot her, shoot her." So an arrow was knocked, quick smart. The doe ends up sitting down right in front of us, looking our way, and I knew the second that I moved to try and draw my bow, she was going to see me move, and then she was either going to stand up and gap it, or she was going to stand up and present me with a shot. And she stood up and presented me with a shot. And if I'm honest, I got extremely lucky on that one, as my arrow cut a piece of supplejack clean in half in flight on the way to her. And yes, Howard was bang on. Her ovaries were rock solid, and because she didn't grow a fawn and then feed a fawn, she was as fat as mud. I had to go back the next day to retrieve it though. That deer was my very first deer with my bow for 2022, and I got that one on public land, which makes it just that little bit sweeter. I have been camping, rain, hail or shine, at my spot trying to get a buck ever since then. I've spent the rainy days editing at camp, and then every chance I've got, I've been out on the public land trying to find myself a big velvet buck. I went back to the spot where me and Howard had found all that buck sign, and all the buck sign had dried up. There was nothing there that was fresh. So then yet again, Nato was on exploratory missions trying to track down the bucks. But on the last day of each one of my camping trips, I've spent that hunting on my mate's private piece of bush, trying to get meat animals and just keeping an eye on the area, hoping that a big mature buck moves in there at some point as well. That just never gets old. I can't believe how much I'm shaking. My heart's pounding, my knees are knocking. It is nuts. Absolutely nuts. I've just spent the last 3 days out on the public land out here trying to find the bucks, trying to locate the bucks. I know they're all grouped up at this time of the year, but I just haven't been finding any buck sign, and I want to get some big antlers as always. And I've just spent the last 3 days in a row, and I've covered 20 to 30 kilometers each day, and I finally found where the bucks are hanging out. Found massive scrapes yesterday, found the first sign of antler damage, so the bucks are stripping their velvet and all the rest of it. Anyway, knackered after 3 days of doing big Ks looking for those bucks. So I thought today I'm just going to go on to my mate's property, today being the 1st of March, and on the 1st of March, in my mind, if you want to shoot a doe, then it's all good because their fawns are now ready, willing and able to look after themselves. And I'm sitting there having an apple, and here comes a doe. I just let an arrow fly at her. She's only like 7 meters just up through the supplejack there. My arrow's still sticking out of the stump there, and I've heard her crash, so it is all good. Time to do some blood trailing and find that beautiful doe and all of that beautiful meat. And now that I've found all of those big bucks, I will be back as soon as I possibly can. I'm trying to think when that can be. I've got to go fishing for a couple of days, such is life, make a show, and then I'm coming straight back camping again and going straight back out to where I found all that buck sign and try and put a big buck on the ground. This one is gonna continue. It's one of those blood trails that a blind man could follow. I'm surprised I can't see her. It was a bit of a bloodbath, that one. She copped a Grim Reaper at point blank, and there was just blood everywhere. It was nuts, absolutely nuts, but stunning animal in beautiful condition. She's going to be awesome eating, and the best part about all of this is I get to use my butcher skills today. Awesome. God, it feels good to have a big, heavy pack full of meat. Can you see the moorpork? Hello, Mr. Moorpork. What do you do? What do you do today? I have been absolutely spoiled for venison this year. I've had more than my fair share, and I've been able to share some of it around, which is awesome. Now, on my most recent camping trip, after spending a truckload of days out on the public land trying to find a buck and failing, it was raining on the last day when I was going home. Now, in the rain, I turn into a ninja. And I say that because nothing can hear you coming. The rain covers your noise. Not only is it covering the noise that you make, but the ground's wet, so it's easier to not make any noise. And on my camping trip previous to my last trip, man, I've had a lot of camping trips this year already, I found some real good buck sign right down in behind my mate's house. That's a buck. I've been spending all of my hunting time while I've been here camping out on the public, and I've left the private alone, except for one mission that I did get a deer on. But anyway, just come down here for a look. There's a scrape in the middle of the paddock. There's big doe sign everywhere, mature doe sign everywhere. There's a young buck there, but there could very well be a big mature one hanging out here. I just heard the fence twang 3 times. It's exceptions to every rule, but I reckon that the younger animals go through the fence. Or some animals go through the fence and some animals go over the fence. So if 3 went through the fence, how many went over it? Anyway, there is a tree hunt happening here very soon. I just got to find me a tree. So on that rainy day, I knew exactly where I was going and exactly what I was hoping to find. But if I'm honest, I was going to shoot pretty much anything because I have really been enjoying the ample supply of venison that I've had this year, and I was getting low.
Now it's getting serious. Nothing's going to hear me coming now.
There was a little deer out in the paddock, and yes, there was a big buck running around there somewhere, but when I seen that little deer, I was thinking about my belly. It was pretty easy to get within 20 of the deer, but it was in a little dip, so I had to squat down, draw the bow, and then rise up. And as I rose up, the deer, of course, had its head up and seen me, and I couldn't see enough of its vitals to let an arrow loose. But when it gapped it, it spooked the rabbit, and I took that opportunity for a practice shot. I was still jacked up from being full draw on the deer, so what better way to practice?
Bugger. When I came up over the rise, I just couldn't see enough of the deer. And if I had a shot at it, I would have smashed it because I just owned the rabbit that was sitting right next to it. I just got my arrow back from shooting that rabbit and then walked another, 30 meters past where I shot that rabbit. And there's a deer sitting on the ground on the other side of this little creek. It's in a real awkward spot, but I reckon I can get to 20. But when I get to 20, it's going to see me. But it's worth the crack, right?
When I got as close as I thought I could get to that deer, I kind of used my phone like some sort of snorkel and just rose my phone up over a few tree roots to see if I could see the deer, where it was and where it was looking and everything like that. And it was a buck. The buck was bedded looking downwind, and downwind is my direction. So I had to somehow draw my bow and then again rise up into his field of view and hope like crazy that he doesn't see me. Now, I assumed that buck to be 22 meters, which was my very first mistake. I don't shoot at fallow deer past 20 meters these days because they jump the string. But that buck is bedded, so he can't jump the string. I only have a 20 meter mark on my sight these days, so all I had to do was aim a little bit higher, assuming that he was at 22, and it would be all good. But he obviously wasn't 22 meters away because my arrow hit nothing but dirt right behind his front leg, and he just jumps up out of his bed, runs up the hill, and I was absolutely pissed at myself. My rangefinder was back in my pack. I had all the time in the world. That buck was bedded, it was raining, the wind was good. I could have gone back to my pack, ranged that buck, and when I'd ranged him, I shoot my bow at my target, often at 30 meters, so I know how much higher to aim if I ever find myself in that situation. But again, I don't want to shoot at any deer past 20 meters, so breaking all my own rules. Believe it or not, that deer obviously had no idea what happened because he came back to see what the hell was going on. He obviously didn't hear the bow go off and the arrow going to him. He was just coming in to sniff the arrow to see what it was. But now I know from where that arrow landed that he's not 22, he's like 26 or 27. I am now fully dialed in. All I've got to do is hold the pin on his backbone, and that buck is in big trouble.
I'm shaking like a... Holy shit, I can't even talk. That's the first buck I've shot here since 2018. Holy crap, and he looked pretty good too. Is he dead? Well, there he is! What a beast! It might have taken me 3 arrows to get him, but I did it! Empty quiver and all. If I'd shot this fella on the public land, I'd be over the moon. But again, I've shot no bucks here since 2018, so totally stoked. I'll take him any which way I can get him, even if it takes me 3 arrows. What a stunner. What an absolute stunner. The day I get my buck on public land, I will be calling in reinforcements, hanging them up and leaving them there. Man, they are heavy.
Well, there you have it. You are now all caught up on my year's hunting to date. 3 deer down, and one of which is a mature buck. Doesn't matter whether it's on private or public, they are all trophies to me, and I have already visited my mate Simon and dropped his head skin off to Simon to be immortalized. I only get like one mature buck a year if I'm lucky. There's been a couple of years that I've missed out, so yeah, every one of them are a trophy, and I want to be like one of those American dudes that have got their whole lounge full up with fallow buck heads. So yeah, it's all good. Like I said at the very start of this video, tomorrow's hunt I reckon is going to be the very first honest crack at getting a mature fallow buck out of a tree with my bow and arrow. And I'm saying that because I've done a heap of scouting over the last 2 months. Found the deer have disappeared, found them again, the deer disappeared, found them again. And tomorrow I am perched on a ridge right in the guts of all of it, and I reckon this ridge is the best chance of catching a big fallow buck out, traveling from scrape to scrape and from food to bedding and all the rest of it. It is a prime spot. So yeah, tomorrow morning I'm up stupid early, headed out there, and fingers crossed that a big mature fallow buck that walks on public land makes the mistake of getting far too close to Nato and his bow and arrow.
Well, that got the heart going. I'm sitting here waiting for a deer to come from this way, and then 2 pigs come from that way, and they got all the way around. I couldn't get a shot at them through down here. It's all a little bit thick just through there. They worked their way up there, but just there I very nearly had a clear shot. I just needed them to come a little bit further, but my wind's going straight across there, and I seen the first pig hit my wind, kind of do a little spin around, and then it just stood there frozen for, I don't know, a good minute or two, and then they slowly toddled off back the way they came. Couple of young boars, I think. The front one might have been a sow, the back one was definitely a boar, but yeah, a little bit hard to tell from here with the low light that I've got. But I am yet to get a deer, I am yet to get a pig out of a tree. So that would have been my first pig out of a tree had that all worked. Very nearly got a pig out of a tree. What else is going to happen today? I just heard my first croak for the year. A big, long, growling type croak. I heard it out this way. So I got my antlers in my bag, touched them up a little bit, not a lot, just enough so that I thought that animal could hear it. And then I could hear animals moving, well, that animal moving this way. Sometime later, 3 bucks flanked me. I don't know how much of it you can see because I only filmed it with the camera on my bow, the GoPro, and it's got a real wide angle, but yeah, anyway, they came around in behind me. The first one got my wind just down here and then kind of spooked a little bit. But then the wind came back to me. The other 2 bucks didn't get my wind. So when they vanished over there, I let out a little croak and one of them started coming back. But then it just froze right there. I don't know if it got my wind or if it's still standing there or who knows. Anyway, a success. 3 bucks out of a tree on public land, spied. They were in bow range. I just couldn't get a clear shot through this vine down here at that one. But before I leave today, I'm going to cut all these dead vines down, so if that happens next time I'm here, I'll get a shot. Whew, exciting. Given the fact that all 3 of those bucks were together, I don't reckon the roar's started yet. It is the 27th of March today, and the bucks are still grouped up. That big mature buck, I'm sure if the roar was going, he'd be by himself. It's just gone lunchtime, and I am about to call it a day. And what a day it was. I seen pigs and deer, and both times just as they got into bow range and in a spot where I could shoot, the wind foiled it. The wind's been a bit switchy pretty much all morning, and I was going to pull the pin right before I seen those pigs, and then I was like, well, if the pigs could get that close and before they got my wind, then maybe a buck would too. And they did. Just not a monster. That's where I was in that tree just there. That scrape was within 20 meters of my tree. That scrape there was within 20 meters. That scrape there was within 20 meters. That scrape there. Those pigs were just in behind there. And then there's another scrape around on the other side of my tree. So I was in the right spot. Can't get any clear marks though. The alarm clock started squawking at me at 3 o'clock this morning, and I was in my truck and leaving home at 3:33 a.m. on another tree hunting for a mature fallow buck on public land mission. I was on the bush here only 2 days ago in a tree for the day, and I seen 2 pigs and 3 bucks out of a tree. I had a swirling wind and wind boogered it for me both times. But anyway, on the way out that day, I took the long way back and I went through 2 other areas where I've seen scrapes in the past and seen a bit of action already this year. And one of those spots was completely torn up by what I believe to be the biggest fallow buck out there. When I seen this sign, these scrapes and this antler damage, there was a tree that was like 4 meters high, pushed over, roots out of the ground, pushed over, completely beaten up, torn to crap, big scrape on the ground. And when I say a scrape, I mean a hole. This dude is just tearing the place up. And yeah, it's the biggest animal I reckon out there at the moment is in that spot. I have tree hunted that spot in the past, didn't see anything
But yeah, it was all good. I found a bed on the ground that had some fresh piss in it, ended up climbing a tree right there. Big buck's piss there this morning. It's on. I've found exactly what I wanted to find. Now I just got to climb a tree and hope for the best. This could be real good. Anyway, the best sign that I've seen this year is at that exact spot. So it is only 2 days later, today being the 29th of March, and the roar is so close to being full-blown hardcore bucks running around looking for the girls, and Nato wants to be in a tree and hope to catch one of them out, and especially this particular buck. I reckon this what do I reckon? One of these days, one of these tree hunts I'm going to go and do, I'm going to see this big buck or one of these big bucks and get one, I'm sure of it. Bring it on. My tree's this way. He's that way. There's farmland like 200 meters that way. I'm going to a tree here. So right now I'm guessing they're out on the grass, which was my plan. Now I gotta get in my tree and hope that that boy, that's the one I'm after, I reckon, comes to his basin while I'm there and I can hold it together and get an arrow loose. I'm all set up and there's a buck croaking pretty close this way. Winds are not quite perfect. It's good for the most part, a little bit switchy, but I just need it to all come together at the right time and this could happen. So there's a buck croaking out there. I just seen some deer. Some does and fawns appear, and I'm watching them and they all disappear, filmed them. That was really cool. I then put my phone up to start talking to it like I am now, and then a buck starts coming, young buck. So I quickly spin the phone around, start filming that buck, and then a bigger buck comes, and then when I first seen him, I was like, yep, that's a mature one, picked up my bow, and then got a better look at him, and I was like, nah, he's still a young, not what I want to shoot, you know. Anyway, filmed him, he goes down here, rocks the pad up a bit, and then they all toddled off into the wind and off yonder. But awesome.
I just seen some deer and they had no idea that I was here. So if it was a mature buck, I could have taken a shot at that bigger buck of the two. So in my mind, that is a big win. Bring on a big one. Rattling works real good on spikers. I rattled the antlers and they just came straight in. One of the spikers was right here at like 16 meters, if that was a big buck. And then it stood down there for another 10 or 15 minutes and it was perfect. I could see its front leg and its shoulder. Again, if it was a big buck, I could have made a shot. And then it comes through and I got this real arty-farty shot of this spiker walking along and I'm filming it through the bow. Go Nato in the face. What an awesome day. I'm gonna rattle antlers again soon and see if they'll come back. God, I love this shit. They got no idea. I could have shanked any one of them. Please, big buck. I gotta show you this place. It is insane at the moment. I got a big scrape. There's a huge scrape right there. Then over there is where that fern was completely destroyed. There's another scrape right here. There's another scrape back in here. But on this side of the tree, there's another scrape just there. You can just see that dark patch. That's what that buck rocked up this morning. And there's another scrape right there. Right by the base of my tree. This is where all the sign is, and I've seen near on 10 deer today. I've got this stupid grin on my face that I can't wipe off.
It is so good when you've got deer in bow range and they're oblivious. It's a win all on itself. If nothing else happens today, I'll go home a happy man. It's just gone 4 o'clock and there's a little debate in my head going down at the moment on whether I stay here until dark or whether I kind of just slowly Miranda my way back through all these good areas that I know. Nothing much has happened since those spikers this morning, other than I'm guessing the same deer that ran through here this morning we're going to run back through here at about 3:30 today, but they got to there, hit my wind and then went back the way they came. So if a buck comes from that way, he might just hit my wind and that's the end of that. So yeah, there's a debate going down in my head. I'm either sitting here till dark or I am going to slowly creep through a few areas on the way back. You will be the first to know. Well, that is it. I'm calling it a day, and what a day it was. I think I could have had a shot at 4 different deer today, 2 of which were both around the 15 metre mark. No idea I was there, and broadside for more than enough time to make a good shot. But I'm not stupid enough to say that I could have got one, because until that deer is dead on the ground in front of you and you've got a bow in your hand, you did not kill a deer with a bow and arrow. So yeah, I won't make that mistake. But yeah, awesome day. Seen a heap of deer, not the deer I wanted. And if I'm honest, I very, very nearly shot that spiker on the side of that clearing before. There was a debate rolling over in my head. Do I come back tomorrow and get the spiker, or do I work, or do I come back tomorrow and go big buck hunting and work, or, you know what I mean? I was shaking and my knees were knocking. That's how close I was to drawing back and shooting that spiker. So yeah, it's all good. I got an hour from here back to the truck. I've already knocked half an hour off it. And yes, if I really want to get a buck, I should be hunting till dark. But at the end of the day, my alarm clock went off at 3 o'clock this morning and I ain't going to get home till 10. So yeah, it's all good. This video is not finished. I'm going to be back here. I've got a bit of work to do, a couple of videos to make, a fishing trip to do. Today is Tuesday. I'll be back camping on Sunday for a week solid, and I'm going to spend a week solid trying to get me a big mature buck on public land and finally get this thing done.